So welcome everybody. My name is Crystal Brown. I have the distinct pleasure of being here to host this virtual fundraiser tonight. Virtual because we're in COVID-19 and we want to be super safe, but also a fundraiser because we want to put our money where our mouth is in terms of local politics. And I just want to welcome you all to a discussion between myself and Tiffany Kuntz Crawford, who is developing a campaign for the county seat of county commissioner, city and county seat. And tonight our goal is to raise about $500. So the way that I like to spend my time and spend my money is pretty clear. We all get 525,600 minutes per year. And if those were $1, then we all would have over $1 million to invest in the things that we believe in and the things that we want to see grow. So we have about 60 minutes tonight to invest in the vision of a town that I hold dear, one that most of you call home, and that one we want to see grow and persevere over the years. So welcome to this event. If you know someone who wants to jump into this conversation, please share the link with them, have them join into the registration, and just let them know that we're here to have a candid discussion about what it means to be a political advocate, what local politics actually does in our world, and to really lay the groundwork for someone to walk in the footsteps of my mother, Jackie Brown, who was a county commissioner in Lenoir County for about 20 years. And that legacy is something that runs true and deep, not only in my family, but in our town, but in the legacy of Black women in politics. My mother comes from a lineage of Cozell M. Wilson, for some of you who may know that name or may not. She was one of the first African-American female leaders and pastors in Kinston, North Carolina, to really align her politics with her race and with her purpose in the world. So my mother and I are not unicorns. We are coming from a lineage of people and women who do this work, similar to Shirley Chisholm and advocates in that realm. And we believe that Tiffany Kuntz Crawford is exactly that lineage of woman. And we want to put our name and our money and our ideas behind her to continue this discussion and dialogue of growth in Kinston, in Lenoir County, and for the people that we love and support. So, Brianna, I think you're going to pray for us. So I'm here with you whenever you want to continue the discussion.
Yes, thank you so much, Miss Crystal, for that introduction. Let us go before the throne of grace. Father, we thank you, God, for bringing us together tonight. Lord, we just ask right now, God, that you just bring your presence in this place. Meet us right here virtually, God. Meet every person where they are right now, God. And Lord, whoever may come across this video, Lord, let the conversation impact them, God, to know that Tiffany Kuntz Crawford is about change, Lord God. We're just praying right now, God, that you would touch the hearts of the people, that they will want to contribute, God, to the vision. And so, Lord, as we go forward through this virtual fundraiser, God, let everything we say and do be pleasing your sight. Cover the technology, cover the people, God. Let us have an enjoyable time. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen. So if you're just joining us, welcome. Again, my name is Crystal Brown. You may have known my mother, Jackie Brown. And we're here tonight in spirit and in the flesh to talk a little bit with Tiffany Kuntz Crawford about her campaign and to raise some money to support that campaign and her ideas for working in the city of Kinston, in the town of Lenoir, and to make things come to fruition. My mother was 74. She was a little bit shy of 75 years of life. She missed her 75th birthday by 5 days. And so we're going to take a moment of silence, and that silence is going to be for 75 seconds. So we're going to honor not only what she would have done, but what she did in her legacy in our hometown. So you can take that moment of silence however you like. Maybe you have a memory about her or with her, or if you don't know her, just you're looking at the other part, right? So this is the future here. And we hope that Tiffany continues that legacy. So we'll take 74 seconds just to be here now. A lot of things happened before this. A lot of things will happen after this. I promise to be here with you now. Please be here with me now. thank you for taking that time. It may seem like a long time in this virtual setting, and I really just want to think with you and Tiffany tonight about the trajectory of change and how long things really take. So when we sit in silence for about 60 seconds, it feels like sometimes it's an eternity. And when we are sitting in social unrest and a health pandemic right now, it also might feel like a lot of what we're enduring is heavier and more palpable than it usually is. And so when we think about local politics, it really, for me, brings about the idea that we have to understand our local to global impact. And so when Tiffany and her campaign actually reached out to me, my first question was, what do you want to do? How can I help? And how is this a part of the legacy of my mother, one, but of a town that I love? And I remember distinctly the first time my mother ran for public office, it was a whirlwind. Our family was building signs outside in the yard. People were calling our home, not with not with the nicest things to say. And it really gave me a glimpse into what it means to change and what it means to put your energy and your life on the line for a greater purpose. And so, Tiffany, when we're going to start this dialogue with me just checking in with you about where you are in this process of building a campaign, but also where you are in the process of developing a vision for the town and the time that you will be in office.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, COVID-19 clearly impacted every campaign in the nation. We had already built a campaign plan, a field plan, a strategy. We planned on being able to go out every weekend canvassing, and all of that just kind of came to an abrupt stop because we wanted to make sure that we keep everyone safe. And not only that, but I wanted to make sure that I kept my family safe. So in regards to the campaign, we're merely just, we've shifted to doing everything digital. I do live coffee with Crawford sessions every Sunday where I engage with the community on different political topics, community issues. I've been able to connect with other candidates on that platform as well. And it's also the beginning of me offering transparency and accountability, being able to go live and say, hey, I'm willing to answer questions at the drop of a dime and be okay with that. And a lot of time people who are public servants are not so comfortable with that type of transparency and accountability. So Coffee with Crawford is actually something that I would hope and plan to continue even if I get elected. Now, when we talk about vision overall for Lenoir County, the first thing I think of is unity, right? One thing that I have seen is that in Lenoir County, we tend to, as people, separate ourselves by our demographics, separate ourselves by our zip codes, separate ourselves by race, et cetera, et cetera. I would like to see our Board of Commissioners build bridges between all of our local townships and municipalities where Kinston is connected to Pink Hill, Pink Hill is connected to LaGrange, we're connected to Deep Run. Because one thing that we know is if the city of Kinston is our county seat, right? So if something in the county seat, which I consider to be the heart of our county, is going wrong, then it's impacting other areas. So the first goal of mine as a county commissioner would be unity. My second goal would be one of growth. A lot of people don't know this. I don't hear a lot of elected officials or leaders talk about it, but we're experiencing a tremendous population decline. And what happens, and population decline statistically is directly related to poverty. So where there's a continuous population decline, there's going to be poverty. And where there's poverty, there's going to be the overcriminalization of a certain demographic of people. So I'm trying to make sure that I see the bigger picture. I always look at facts to be able to make plans as I go forward. And I also want to make sure that I'm someone that represents the way that your mother did, with grace, and is able to have those hard conversations, even when me and some of the board members may not agree with everything, but we can come to a compromise that's one for everyone. And we can make sure, as I say in my platform all the time, that government is one that works for all constituencies, all constituents in Lenoir County.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's great. Tell us a little bit for the people who might not know Tiffany. And I just want to go back for 1 second while I'm seeing a couple of things in the chat and make the announcement that I made to you the other day. Again, I am a person of action. Most of you know me as a dancer for most of my life. But if I'm not moving, if I'm not doing something, it probably means that it's not something I believe in. And so I want to just be clear that I believe in this campaign, and whatever you donate tonight, I will match it personally from my own pocket. I will match whatever you give tonight. Our goal is $500, but again, I'm many things. I am my mother's daughter. I'm a dancer. I'm an artist. I'm a professor. I'm a life coach. I'm an entrepreneur. And so goals for me are just structures and strategies. I'm always ready to go above and beyond. So again, whatever we match, whatever we raise tonight, I will match that to meet Tiffany's goal of this tonight raising $500, but also getting to the campaign goal of which I believe is about $8,000. So Tiffany, when we're looking again at this bigger picture, when we're looking at poverty, when we're looking at population decline, when we're looking at systemic racism, when we're looking at a county that, when I was young, it was an all-American city. I remember when Kinston was declared an all-American city, it was a big deal. Buddy Rich was so excited. There were flags downtown, and it was before we saw this decline of local business across the country, right? And so can you give us a little bit of what might be the Tiffany Kuntz Crawford stimulus plan for Kinston?
Well, one thing that I am very passionate about, I have to mention this, is criminal justice reform. And people don't think that criminal justice reform is related to the economy, right? But when an individual is incarcerated and they lose their job, whatever the training cost was for that company that had hired that individual, they've just lost whatever that training cost is, right? So economically, criminal justice reform is good business. So the one thing I would like to do is work with the sheriff to see if we can implement some type of training and educational programs. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. Sheriff Paula Dance in Pitt County has already started something similar where people who are incarcerated in that facility can have access to training, education, GED, substance abuse. Because when people come into that revolving door, it's because they have issues that they have not resolved within themselves, right? Whether it's them dealing with poverty or whether it's them dealing with a substance abuse issue. So criminal justice reform is good economics, and that's proven. If anyone can go look that up. Another thing that I think that we need to do is we're already known in Lenoir County in Eastern North Carolina as being able to bring in we have good manufacturing companies and good manufacturing businesses, right? But we need to figure out a way to attract what people call the business professional or the professional, right? Because where you have people who are educated, you also have people that are making good money, and you have good economics there also. So one, criminal justice reform. Two, figure out a way to attract more professionals here. And in dealing with professionals, we have to create affordable housing. All of these things are tied into, quote unquote, what you would call a stimulus package. I don't want to speak so much and say that, I have some plan that would save the county, because obviously the rest of the board members would have to be on board. But those are a few of my ideas. Criminal justice reform, getting people back working instead of incarcerated at a high rate. So we have high rates of recidivism. Figuring out a way to make Lenoir County more attractive to professionals. We're booming when it comes to our manufacturing companies. So those are two things that I would like.
Again, I'm born and raised in Kinston. I've lived a lot of places. I've traveled the world. And when I come home, I do see a little bit of a gap in terms of where the working professionals are. Not to say they don't exist. I just don't usually run into them. And I'm coming home, so I'm not doing the tourist thing. I'm just going around to see my family. But at the same time, when I'm living in other places, I can see similar to what I see in Kinston. And if I go downtown, there's a certain sector that looks like a social atmosphere, and where working professionals might hang out or have that type of recline from their day-to-day lives. So when I talk about stimulus, I'm really talking about stimulating the intellectual capacity of the city and the county. I'm talking about stimulating people's ability to create and generate capital, access to capital for small businesses, creating pathways that young people see themselves outside of their current state or environment. And in a way that was done a little bit differently for my generation. For my generation, we were told, hey, here's the moon, shoot for it, and you never have to come back. And so I really want to apologize on behalf of my generation that we did not come back and reinvest in our city, in our town, in our county, because we weren't actually told that that was the trajectory of success, right? And so in this stimulus, in this recalibration of mental capacity and intellectual capital, Tiffany, how do you see us keeping that intellectual capital in the county?
Well, one thing that you have to do, one thing that I would like to do is develop some type of youth programs, right? At the very least within the sheriff's office and within county government, whereas young people can shadow while they're in high school, or shadow even while they're in middle school, to see what individuals that are working in different capacities do. Even being able to shadow a county commissioner, connecting with city government for students to be able to shadow those jobs, to see what it looks like to work in those capacities, to have those conversations about work. There are so many different things and issues that we have that go all the way back to, and when you talk about that intellectual capacity, when you look at the historically in Kinston, when we chose what Caswell Center versus getting actual ECU, we have to show young people what the job looks like. We have to show them and give them guidelines and strategies for who they can become. And not only that, but we have to give them the support that they actually need while they're in high school to be able to move forward.
Yeah, that's great. You know, one of my mother's famous sayings was, every generation gets weaker and wiser. She would usually say it to us when it was like we didn't do our chores, right? Because we just so kind of weak. You want to be so smart on that computer, but you can't take out the trash, you know, like, so it's funny in our household, but as I see it prevail in my kind of growing as a woman and a mother, it's true. You know, we have young people today who have a lot of access and information, but the lack of understanding does not allow them to actualize their actual gifts. And it's not just young people, it's all of us. We're inundated with information. We are kind of saturated with the story of something rather than the facts of something. And so, Tiffany, if we were going to talk about your campaign, and while we're talking about your campaign, if we're going to vision forward as you winning this county seat, let's talk about some of the story around what you will be known for, right? So what are the changes you hopefully will affect and impact? You know, one of the things that I learned after my mom passed is it's a statistic that people are usually only remembered 5 years after they pass away. That's the average, even for people who had great impact. So when the story is told, Tiffany, and it will be told, what will they say about Miss Crawford?
I'm gonna tell you, I think they will say that she was a feisty individual, a feisty individual who believed in social justice. I'm a person, I grew up in East Kinston, and I use the term social justice a lot. I grew up, and growing up in East Kinston, that has been known as the most economically distressed area, not in North County, but the most economically distressed area in the state of North Carolina. I have seen over time that economic stratification, and seeing over time like the economic wage gaps between the rich and the poor. So I think I will be known for social justice. I will be known for the people coming first at all times. As a woman and as a Black woman, I don't know everything, but I'm concerned about the quality of life of the citizens in Lenoir County. And that's one of the things that I admired most about your mom. She was always considerate and thinking about the salaries of Lenoir County employees, which is a problem right now today that I think that she even, I guess, foresaw. She was concerned with the quality of life of people in the workforce in Lenoir County. So I would hope to be known for a woman that fought for social justice, a woman that fought for the people, and a woman that said that she was going to make the right decisions regardless. And I'm trying to make sure I say this the right way, doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do. I want to be known for doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do. I don't want to be known as someone who sells out to that buddy system in democracy, that gets on a board or gets on a council and decides that they're going to partner with someone else on how they vote instead of voting on their own conscience. I'm willing to lose my favor, per se, in order to do the right thing for the citizens in Lenoir County.
And what do you think right now? I mean, if we had two things that we were really going to focus on that could be ethical decisions or dilemmas that the county is facing, what are two things that you really can pinpoint where it could be an ethical, economic, industrial, some things that might get a little confusing or hairy to the greater public?
Well, I'm gonna tell you. So one thing for me, I worked for the sheriff's office for 7 years. I was a detention supervisor, a detention corporal, and one of the things that actually made me decide to run for office was being at a meeting where the county commissioners decided to switch from med cost to Blue Cross Blue Shield as far as their insurance. And I was one of the individuals, whereas my take-home pay was so drastically, it changed so drastically. I was trying to figure out what exactly I was going to do. I was in a meeting where I watched people weeping, people who serve in law enforcement weeping, trying to figure out if they needed to go to another agency. So right now, the Board of Commissioners, they just did like a pay study, right? Paid $50,000 for a pay study to see where other surrounding counties are versus the county, versus Lenoir County. And they clearly see that they are behind the market when it comes to pay, right? And I want to be transparent here, and because this is one of those sticky situations. And I watched the meeting where some of the commissioners were like, well, this generation, we offer good benefits. And this generation is more concerned about money than they are concerned with benefits in the long term. But what they didn't, the picture that they didn't know was, if I would have decided to stay at Lenoir County Sheriff's Office for 30 years, I would have retired when I was 56. The life expectancy for a detention officer and law enforcement officer is 58 and a half years old. So you're saying that we need to accept low pay because we offer a decent benefits package that they're not even sure that they're going to be able to sustain. But my life expectancy would have been only 2.5 years after that because of the stress of the job. And this is a conversation that the county is in right now. And one of the last things that your mom actually discussed, I think it was 2016, she did a news interview with Kinston Free Press, and she was concerned about the pay of county employees. And right now, Lenoir County they have a high turnover rate because of the rate of pay. They're known as a place of business where people come to get their training and then leave, because you can go to Pitt County and make $10,000-15,000 more dollars. You can go to Wayne County and make about $4,000 more dollars a year. So right now they're at a place where, I think they have to be willing to make that initial investment. And I think that's what we're missing here. We're so scared to pay the upfront cost and the initial investment in the employees that you're worried about it from this point to 5 years. But if you're paying the small number of employees that you have that continuous overtime, you're paying that money over time anyway. And if you're saying now, they're saying now they don't even know if they're going to be able to continue this benefits package. So I'm just thinking right now, this moment, it's time to make that initial investment as in regard to a pay increase, because it impacts the quality of life, and we're losing some of the best people to other counties.
Yeah.
And that's one of those just sticky situations right now that's going on with county government.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's a good analysis. I also, I want to come back to this term quality of life, Tiffany, because, governments, the first goal of all government, be it local, national, or international, is to sustain the quality of life of its citizens. And so what I hear you saying is that there's a gap between the quality of life that the citizens in Kinston, Lenore County are participating in. And you're referencing my mother's compassion to it. And I want to be very candid here that my mother grew up down the hill, but she raised us up the hill. And for those of you who don't know what that means, my mother grew up in the area of Kinston that most people equate right now with drugs, poverty, and crime. But she raised us up the hill. But we were raised up the hill, but we were always up and down that kind of metaphorical hill all the time, because our family still lived there, our grandparents lived there. And so the ways in which I was introduced to culture and strata and growth are about what you're talking about. I had access to both of those realities simultaneously, and I had the choice to do one or the other. Right? And so what you're saying is everyone doesn't get the illustration that there is a bigger or different choice. And when you talk about quality of life, it's about managing the power of choice. And when people don't have those choices, they have nothing to manage and they feel powerless. And when you feel powerless, it re-engages this idea you brought up earlier about poverty, because poverty is not just about the money in your pocket, it's about the worth in your soul. And this intellectual regeneration of a town that has been devastated for many of its citizens by the effects of poverty, both mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and economically, sounds like to me the vision that I want to help you support. And so again, if you're just joining us or you haven't donated yet, in this hour, we want to make sure that this campaign raises at least $500. So whatever donation you feel compelled to give tonight, I will match it. So your 50 turns into 100, your 100 turns into 200, your 1,000 turns into 2,000. So let's make sure that when we leave this hour, we have again put our money where our mouth is, because the money is really just the energy that pushes the ideas forward and supports the people who we want to do good work. Money and salaries are not about numbers. They're really about buying someone's time and talent for the greater good. And so we want to make sure that we're putting the right amount of value on the time and talent and the vision of Tiffany Kuntz Crawford as she is pushing forward to continue a legacy that we feel very much attached to. Tiffany, when we think about, yes, right, exactly, getting into good trouble, yes, shout out to John, shout out to the legacy of John Lewis, yeah, who, just by happenstance, I had the amazing pleasure to meet and have my son meet him and have all his autographed, his books autographed, and so, but I wouldn't have known that legacy of civil rights, of change, of activism, had it not been for my mother. My mother was really deeply involved, not only in local politics, but before that, she was the treasurer for the NAACP, the secretary for the Black Caucus. Many of you might not know that right down the hill around Atkins Street, there used to be a Black Artists Guild, which is where I first saw Black people painting and dancing and creating plays, and that's how I knew that that was a way to grow. And so, Tiffany, again, when we're thinking about just those small gaps like that don't exist right now in our town and our county, what other small things can we do that can be fillers for that quality of life?
You know what, Christal, I'm glad you just mentioned what you mentioned. So when I was at Kinston High School, music was everything. I was trumpet captain. I would have possibly been the leader of the band, but I didn't want to put my horn down, right? I didn't want to put my horn down, so I didn't want to do that. The arts and music making sure that children, I mean, we want them to be technologically advanced, and I love STEM and I love those things. But over the years, I have found myself saying, like, kids are losing that personality,
Yeah.
that soul, that that makes us who we are as people, and music was everything to me, and when you take music, you hear music everywhere you go.
Mm-hmm.
And it has saddened me so much to see how, over time, how small our band has gotten, and that it's no longer cool to be a musician. You know what I mean? Like, when I was in high school, and I'm sure when you were coming through, the band was the thing. It was cool to be artistic. You know what I mean? People would look at you and be jealous and be envious when you were in that uniform. And I've seen students and children kind of shy away from the arts.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, how do we, can we, and a part of my platform is that youth and youth program also, like, can we find the money to to bring back that creativity so our kids can get that soul in them again, because they're so connected to the technology, even, and there's all this digital learning. And I'm like, can we please just at least have one book requirement, bring home one hard book, because it's something about things that are tangible. It's something about when we were in school, us turning those pages. It was something about us journaling and writing and writing down, taking notes every time our teachers did that. So I just wish there was a way for us to figure out how to get back to tangibility and students taking pride in that and being able to express themselves. So I would love to see, as a county commissioner, if I could advocate for something dealing with the arts and creativity, kids being able to go after school and express themselves through artwork, through poetry, all of these different things. Just that tangibleness that just connected us to each other,
Yeah. I honestly believe, and there's some other generations on this call. I see Chris Suggs here, and I'm gonna, I could probably be his professor at this point because of the age gap, but I digress. When we think about this idea of tangibility, I work on so many levels with young people. And what I've noticed right now in this digital transition, is that although young people love technology, when you introduce them to something that they can touch and hold and build, it does change who they are and what they find is valuable. Right. And so really, when we talk about quality of life, when we talk about this city and this county growing, we're really talking about how we make tangible connections to the city and the county with the people involved in the transition and allow them to be with each other so that we increase the value of each other and our relationships. I teach at a predominantly white institution, which is really the number 4 liberal arts college in the country. It costs more than most people make a year for one student to go here per year. And when I look at the disparity of that gap of where I come from and the people that I serve, I'm often reminded that value, again, is not just about a dollar sign. It's about who people believe they are and what they have access to. And when we think about the idea of environmental change, which is a lot in the atmosphere of people whose normal or basic needs are already taken care of. So I have this conversation with my students a lot because they come from wealthy families and they like to talk about issues of climate change and and I really kind of break it down for them and I bring it right back down to the moment and say the climate that I'm interested in is the climate between you and I. And our relationship is going to change more about the world than if I recycle or not as my one person. Right? So when we think about this climate change and this growth and this economic slash identity empowerment that we're looking at in the city and the county, Tiffany, bringing back the arts is one thing, but how do you see fostering dialogue between disparate people and people who might be from different parts of the county, people who might have different perspectives and point of views, and how do you see that happening in an ethical and impacting fashion?
Well, I'm gonna tell you, I'm glad it goes back to what I said earlier about what unity, right? I believe as elected officials and community leaders, it is our responsibility to bring everyone together. It is our responsibility to bring everyone together to have those uncomfortable conversations. I think that our governments, when you talk about, you know, the city council and the county commissioners, and then you have the town council in LaGrange, and then you have the mayor in Pink Hill and their town commissioner board. And I question, like, when is the last time each municipality and township came together? Because when is all of the leaders in from each municipality and township come together and discuss the issues within their community? Because where one issue may be happening in Kinston and a different issue may be happening into LaGrange, but there could be a similar way to solve the problem. But if we're not all coming at the table to have those conversations, we'll never know. So as a county commissioner, I would recommend and hope that the rest of the members on the commissioners board would agree with me that we need to have at least 4 meetings a year with all of the elected officials in Lenoir County to figure out, because if something is working economically in Pink Hill, maybe that's something that could work for the city of Kinston on a bigger level. You know, if there's something that LaGrange has figured out regarding agriculture, that could be something that could be taken to Pink Hill. But if we're not having those dialogues, then we don't know what's going on. So if the citizens in Lenoir County see all of their leaders come together from different backgrounds, from different economic statuses, different cultures, different ethnicities, if all of the leadership would come together and then take that information back to the citizens, we could see a change. Because again, I say a lot of times we separate ourselves by our demographics and our zip codes, and a lot of times if there's an issue going on the other side of the county, if it doesn't impact you directly, most times it's out of sight, out of mind. So all of the leaders in Lenoir County need to come together, as far as I'm concerned, in a quarterly meeting with all of the elected officials to figure out what's going on, and also open up a town hall for all of the citizens in Lenoir County so we can figure out how to come together. There's a young lady in Pink Hill by the name of Jamie Thompson. She's a young pastor. And she has already started having these dialogues in an area that a lot of people would consider to be like extreme racial tension that is unspoken. And she has taken the lead in trying to bring everyone together so they can see the value in their humanity, right? We separate ourselves. It's easy to separate ourselves by our political affiliations and by our religious beliefs. But if we figure out in Lenoir County how to connect on a humanity level, right, then that we may be able to tap into something on a whole nother spectrum when we figure out how to connect with one another.
I agree. I mean, you know, it just begs the question, Tiffany, what is going to bring everyone to the table? What's the one thing that everyone has an interest in that might leverage that conversation?
Family. Everyone loves their family. Family and government. Government impacts every area of our lives, whether we believe it or not. And if you realize that something impacts your family and can impact the sustainability of your household and family, then I think we can get everybody on the same page. There are so many differences going on right now, and I've even been guilty of, you know, standing strong on sometimes separating myself even by my own political affiliation. And I'm going to have a transparent moment here. But one thing that I have realized is our humanity but we plead the blood of Jesus right now, and we love them, and we're talking about unity and coming together, and that's exactly why we have to have these dialogues.
And there's another one, and in the name of exactly.
Yes.
So, you know, these are the moments that really will be a hurdle, or people will try to be a hurdle for you, Tiffany, in this campaign, right? People are not looking at the issues. They're looking at separating us even further. And
Yeah.
this is not the first time that I've seen this happen. This is not the first time that I've ever heard about this happening. But in these digital platforms, it's very evident where people want to spend their energy devising plans to be separatist, right? And so, again, I said when my mom first ran her first campaign, I remember being probably in the 8th grade and answering the phone just like on a regular hello, and being berated by someone on the other end about my mother's political affiliation or who she was or what she thought she was doing. And I didn't understand it at the time, but it is one of the acts of resistance to just actually stand up and say, I will continue to fight, right? I will continue to walk the path that leads to everyone's humanity for the greater good, no matter what separation looks like for other people. Choosing the ethical road of humanity is going to be one that we all continue to face. Just some people a little bit harsher than others. Yeah.
Absolutely. But you know what? It only ignites me and motivates me even further, because they're not intimidated by me. They're intimidated by the God I serve and the goodness that's going to come forth, So I just say I'm good.
Yeah. There's a question, what is the current makeup of the County Commissioner Board, and what is your stance on public education and limited internet service as it relates to the public education?
Okay, if I understand correctly, the current makeup of the board, if she's talking about political affiliation, there's 5 Democrats and 2 Republicans. Okay, I got you right. So 5 Democrats, 2 Republicans. Two Republicans are white males, 1 white male Democrat, 2 white female Democrats, and 2 African American male Democrats. In regard to internet access, I think it's ridiculous that we have an issue with broadband in Eastern North Carolina. But unfortunately, I'm not even going to call it a political issue. That's an issue with people valuing different things, right? Valuing people having access to different things. And it's time for elected officials to stand up and demand that our state elected officials do what they have to do to make sure that broadband and internet access is a public utility. And some people will debate that and say, public utilities should be free. I remember someone saying that to my nephew. I won't call his name right now, but I remember someone saying that to my nephew, and the lady said something like, you have to pay for lights and water or something like that. He said, that's a shame too, so, and he said, that's a shame too. Economics and money should not continue to be the difference between a child getting access to the proper education or a individual, a parent being able to continue to work from home or not. It's time out from money being the difference between people surviving and thriving, and like I said, that's not a political issue per se. That's just about people having different values. If you don't think that people have a right, it should be a right to that type of internet access, then that's a value issue.
Yeah. Well, I think, as we grow and change as a society, we haven't really connected all the dots in terms of government, economics, social strata, quality of life, and that public school is paid for by taxpayers. Everyone pays their taxes, right? That's not an option. So if the education system has to now go online, then the online access is a part of the initial investment of the educational system, right? So we're at this place where we're understanding and trying to parcel out all of the different parts of the equation, and some of them are getting a little convoluted, right? And so even the idea that most teachers were being praised back in March of like, oh my God, this is so hard. Thank God for teachers, and now Some of them are being demonized because they don't want to put their life in jeopardy to go back into the classroom because they may have health concerns or underlying health issues. So that quality of life and determining equity in the moment has to continually be a conversation. So yeah, that's great, Tiffany. Anything else you want to add? I want to go back and just be clear that, again, we are raising money today. This is a virtual fundraiser for the Kuntz Crawford campaign. And I am going to make a personal pledge to double or to match whatever donations come in tonight in this hour. We're pledging here to create and sustain this campaign and these ideas by really putting our energy towards something that will create equity and a voice for social change. We're currently at 225. Great. So that means we're at 450. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. We're almost there.
Thank y'all.
Yeah. Great.
You know, Christal, I guess one of the things that I would say, given that we're honoring your mom, is that I just want to continue the legacy that she began on that board, and sometimes she had to make some tough decisions. Yeah. You know, I mean, I remember some specific times that she voted on things where sometimes she may have been the only person to vote no. Sometimes she was one of two to vote no. Yeah. And that's what I was talking about when I said being able to make those decisions, even if at times it's going to cost you, quote unquote, favor, because I think we've come to a time now where people have sold themselves for the positions and for the leadership and wanting to be in those positions because of their ego and forgetting that your purpose is to serve. And one thing that your mother never lost sight of was her purpose and the fact that she was serving for her community. So I remember those tough moments, but I'm willing, in her honor, in her memory, to continue to sometimes being the only person that votes no. Yeah. I just thank you for being a continuation of her legacy. I thank you for agreeing to do this with us. And I just tell you, her picture keeps coming back in my mind. But I was meditating on her earlier about one of the last interviews she did, and just remembering that she was so concerned again with the people and their quality of life, and not necessarily being liked. Yeah. Well, yes, yes. I mean, that is. And Jackie she Brown handled it with such grace. She handled it, and when she came home, you all may have saw a different side, right? I'm not sure. Of course, but she handled it with such grace. And I asked God earlier to give me her grace, give me a little bit of her grace, and you know, that calmness that she had. Whereas sometimes maybe you didn't really know what she was thinking in the moment, you know. Mm-hmm. So I just thank you again, and I thank everyone that tuned in today and donated. I thank you for believing in me. Yeah. You know, that grace under pressure, Tiffany, is something, you know, that my mother taught me early on. And she didn't necessarily sit me down and say, listen, when you did it right, but it was a way that she just carried herself. And yes, of course, we saw a different part of her at home because, you know, home is where you get to be human. Yeah, home is where you get to let it all out, and people are there to support and love you because they know all of your parts, right? And so in the public eye, you know, you're not always able to show all your parts, especially being a woman in leadership, race aside, just being a woman in leadership, thinking about being vulnerable in front of people. Sometimes people may take that as a weakness, and sometimes people may take your courageousness or your integrity as being off-putting, right? And so when we think about how we measure that balance, that delicate balance of being authentic enough to know our purpose, being transparent enough so that people know us, but also being ethical in ways that see beyond our limitation or our categories, then really, I think that's where that grace comes from. And I believe that you have that. I've listened, I've followed your campaign, I've done a little research on my own, and I wouldn't be here putting my name, my mother's name, my family's name behind something that I did not believe in. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. We have about 9 minutes left. I'm wondering if you want to take any questions from the
Yes.
callers or.
Yes. If anybody has any questions, yes, ma'am.
Thank you guys for your donations. This is great. Here we go. We're gonna make. I'm pretty sure we've reached our goal here now. Brianna, is that true? I mean, with the matching, are we done?
Yeah.
We've hit the 500. That's amazing. Listen, when teamwork makes the dream work, I really believe that. Oh, we're at 2 steps, so we're over the goal. Look at that. Congratulations, Tiffany. Congratulations. Thank you, everybody, for not just showing up, but actually, putting your contribution and your energy into something that will become a reality. Yeah, great. That's awesome. I'm sorry.
Does anybody have any questions?
I got excited.
Does anyone have any questions?
Well, I know you asked me a question, Tiffany, and you said, what advice do I think that my mother would give you? Woo! And I don't know if I could say it like she would say it, but my mother was really a woman who believed in standing your ground. And she believed in fulfilling the capacity of whatever role she was in. So many of you might not know, when I was born, my mother was actually a bank teller. She was a bank teller, then she was a apartment complex manager before she started her kind of political career. My father, many of you might or might not know, lost both his legs in Vietnam. So my parents were civil servants in my perception from the very beginning. I never knew exactly what their personality was when they were, going through these things that happened before I was born, but I could see the result of them saying yes to something that was bigger than them. And so, Tiffany, I think my mother would say to you, if you've said yes to the thing that's bigger than you, you got to let it lead. And continue to say yes every day to the thing you believe in, even when the circumstances, the situation, and the things around you don't add up to a yes. Yeah.
Thank you. That's good. That's good. I appreciate that. I needed that. I absolutely needed that because doing this, people don't always understand. When you say yes to this, you have to say yes every day.
Yeah.
There have been so many days that I have said, God, what did I get into? Mm-hmm. Whether it was because of things that, like what just happened a moment ago,
right?
Inboxes, different things, people posting false business reviews on my husband's business page.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, God, what did I get into?
Yeah.
And he just reminded me of a moment I had with him a long, long time ago, showing me that, my life is not my own. And when you give your life to Christ, when you give your life to God, and he puts things like this in you, you have to suffer.
Mm-hmm.
Like Christ suffered, and I'm not supposed to be crying up here. I'm sorry, y'all.
That's okay.
Christ suffered, and people have no idea sometimes what you go through to be a servant. They have no idea the impact that it can have on your personal family. They have no idea the impact that it can have on your mental capacity. And I say to God all the time, the fact that I have not lost my mind
mm-hmm.
means that you are with me, So I just, and that's where I am. I think somebody asked a question.
Who has a question, Brianna?
It's from Apostle Shepherd. His question is, Ms. Crawford, how will you address disaster preparation for the county? Unlike some of the commissioners, we have currently that only advocate for one populace of the county?
I'm glad you asked that, Apostle Shepherd. First and foremost, I'm not a rocket scientist or anything like that. But what I do know is that every year that we go through certain disasters, there are people who make a lot of money that pay insurance, and they wind up making a lot of money. And then every year you have poor people and typically Black and brown people who are impacted the most by these issues. I was having a conversation with someone a while back about a possible plan to actually divert the water. We have disaster preparation here, right? We do the same thing every year. We have disaster preparation. But has anybody looked at the way the water flows to figure out a diversion plan, a way to divert that water? And I know that there's a way to do it. So let's figure out a way to be proactive instead of constantly being reactive. Now, I'm not going to say that I have an actual plan for that, but I do know that we need to figure out how to get to the root of the issue with the way the water flows in our county, so we can figure out how to move forward. Now, I know that the county commissioners, there's been some work done that they got recognition for. I can't think of it right off the top of my head, but there has been some work with hurricane preparation and water flow and flooding or something like that that they have created. As soon as I get that information, Apostle, I will get it to you. But I'm thinking we need to figure out a way to divert water flow, so we can be proactive instead of continuing to be reactive, and we lose, and like we lost Lincoln City to continuous flooding, right? And then you have people that are continuing to make money off of disaster relief because they can afford insurance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's great. You don't always have to have the answer, but you do have to know where to get it, right?
That's right.
You don't have to be a disaster engineer, but you do have
Right.
to have, the capability to say, this is what we need, and the plan will follow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, we have about 2 more minutes. Anybody have any final words or encouragements for Tiffany Crawford here as we prepare to continue to push and share this campaign and these ideas? And as we get ready to close tonight, I just want to say congratulations and thank you to those of you who contributed. Congratulations, Tiffany, for hitting this milestone, this small goal on the way to a bigger yes. And thank you for saying yes to this call in a way that other people may have ignored or just may not felt equipped to tackle at this time.
Thank you, Monica. I guess I want to close by just telling everyone thank you if you contributed. If you were unable to contribute, it's okay. There are other ways to contribute, like sending me some encouragement. If you're able to volunteer, you can volunteer. Call me every now and then to check on me and see how I'm doing. The biggest thing we can do is spread the word. If you know someone that's not registered to vote, make sure that you get them registered to vote. If you're on this call right now, go ahead and request your absentee ballot, because we don't know what November is going to look like. So it's better for you to request your absentee ballot and not need it than get to November and you won't have access to the ballot. So if you need any more information about the campaign, go to www.tiffanykcrawford.com. Follow us on Facebook. Facebook is Tiffany Crawford for County Commissioner. Twitter and Instagram are Crawford for Lenore.
Great. Thanks for dropping those links, Brianna. And thank you again, everybody, for joining us. It's been a pleasure to see my hometown rise up and meet the challenge of growing and becoming what this Lenore County can be in terms of its original declaration as an all-American city. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.